Welcome to this explainer. You know, there's a rather provocative macroeconomic thesis out there from the Nexus Wealth Playbook, and it warns that something big is coming. We're not talking about a standard recession or a market crash here. We're looking at a potential global financial reset. Today, we're objectively unpacking this playbook to see exactly what they claim happens to your money when these massive systemic shifts occur. Let's just jump right into the bold claim that really forms the hook of this entire source material. They state, and I quote, "This is not a recession, not a crash, a complete reset of the global financial system." So the playbook is immediately distinguishing this from your typical everyday market cycles. Historically, when an event like this happens, they warn that most people lose everything, while a small, informed group actually survives and prospers.
But hey, instead of panicking, let's treat this as what it is, an economic thesis that we can analyze. So, first things first, what exactly is a financial reset? Because to even begin to understand how to protect wealth, we've got to understand the actual mechanics of what the playbook claims is headed our way.
According to their definition, a reset isn't just a market downturn. It is a complete, literally overnight rewriting of the rules that govern all your money. Think of it like a broken clock being completely rewound to zero. Under a new system, those familiar bank statements you check every day, or the cash sitting in your wallet, they're suddenly subject to entirely new rules, recalculations, and valuations. The system just flips.
Section 1. History of Monetary System Changes, a Pattern of Resets.
The playbook grounds these dramatic warnings in actual historical precedent. They argue this absolutely isn't fiction. It's a repeating pattern. I mean, just look at this timeline. In 1944, 44 nations gathered at Bretton Woods, and they completely rewrote the global monetary system in just 3 weeks. Fast forward to 1971, President Nixon suddenly ended the gold standard, and overnight, every single dollar lost its anchor. Now, the playbook projects that these cycles are pointing directly toward a massive new shift right around the year 2026.
And they argue we're seeing the exact signals of a reset repeating right now. Just look at this list. You've got the BRICS nations actively building an entirely new payment system. We're seeing the global launch of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. The U.S. national debt has just crossed an astronomical $35 trillion, and there's this rapid de-dollarization accelerating across Asia and Africa. The core thesis here? The current system isn't just broken, it is actively being replaced, and most people are completely unaware it's even happening.
Section 2. The 3 wealth risks, what a reset does to money.
So let's look at how this builds into specific real-world threats for everyday people. The author breaks the danger down into 3 distinct steps that typically happen when a government panics during a monetary transition. Basically, these are the exact mechanics of how ordinary wealth gets wiped out when a system completely flips.
To highlight step 1, currency devaluation, the source cites some pretty intense historical examples. In 1923 Germany, inflation got so extreme that people were literally pushing wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy one single loaf of bread. And that massive number you're looking at, that's $100 trillion. That is the $100 trillion note from Zimbabwe in 2008. A bill of that insane size couldn't even buy you a bus ticket. The point is, when a new system launches, the old currency can lose its value incredibly fast.
Moving to steps 2 and 3, the playbook lists these very specific and frankly recent historical events to show how bank accounts and private pensions can just be frozen or seized overnight to cover national debt. In places like Greece in 2015, Cyprus and Argentina, everyday people woke up to find their savings completely inaccessible, locked behind closed bank doors. Meanwhile, in Hungary and Poland, private pension funds were actually absorbed by the state. The playbook strongly warns that the fine print on your own retirement accounts might leave them surprisingly vulnerable to government authority during a major crisis.
Section 3. The Wealth Protection Playbook, Defensive Strategies.
Okay, so the million-dollar question, how does the source suggest we actually navigate this? The playbook draws a stark contrast between everyday financial tools, which it labels as highly vulnerable, and hard, tangible assets. Things we normally rely on, like local fiat cash, centralized pensions, or keeping all your money in a single bank, are seen as huge liabilities here. On the flip side, what's protected? Physical gold, silver, land deeds, and globally traded assets. Based on their historical analysis, these are the assets that have managed to survive every single financial reset across centuries.
So here is the exact playbook they recommend to insulate yourself. First, own hard assets outside the traditional banking system. Again, things like gold or land. Second, reduce your overall dependency on cash and spread what you do have across multiple institutions. Don't keep all your eggs in one basket, right? Third, keep about 3 to 6 months of physical cash accessible at home for emergencies. Fourth, understand and position yourself early for central bank digital currencies. And finally, build income streams outside your local currency, using things like globally traded index funds. The idea is, if your local currency collapses, your global assets survive intact.
Now, speaking of those central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, the source brings up this staggering figure. Over 130 countries are actively developing them right now. 130!
Now, while the playbook definitely views these as a tool for government control over spending, it emphasizes that understanding them is actually your best defense. Early adopters, who understand how the new system works, will be able to navigate it strategically. As they argue, knowledge is always going to be your very first asset.
Section 4. The mindset of preparedness. Wealth transfer, not end of wealth. As we wrap up the core thesis, the author pivots from this sense of urgency to one of empowerment, and this is key. Their underlying philosophy is that a financial reset is not the end of wealth, it is simply a transfer of wealth. It's about shifting from being reactive to being proactive. They point out that every major reset in history has actually created a whole new class of wealthy individuals. And it's not because they're just lucky. It's because they're early, they're informed, they study the patterns, and they position themselves long before the crowd starts panicking.
So, as we conclude this explainer, I want to leave you with this to ponder. Whether you buy into the specific 2026 timeline or not, the historical patterns of monetary shifts are very real. They have happened before, and the signals we're seeing today, from rising national debt to the rollout of digital currencies, are undeniably present. So knowing this historical pattern, how are you evaluating these macroeconomic signals? And more importantly, what steps are you taking to prepare for the inevitable evolutions of our global financial system?